My wife secretly terminated the pregnancy and then blamed me, saying I treated her like a baby machine. But she's been secretly seeing her high school sweetheart and treats his daughter like her own. When I found out, she had the nerve to explain, "We're just friends, beyond romantic feelings. It's not what you think." Today, Tina went out shopping with her friends, and I was supposed to be on a business trip. Instead, I was at home setting up a surprise. I prepared everything for the new baby and got Tina some gifts, like a gemstone necklace, a limited edition bag, and plans for a world trip. After all, being pregnant is tough and I wanted to spoil her. She's been planning a trip, but I've been too busy with work. Now, while she's pregnant, I'm taking a long break to go with her. I had everything ready, and Tina came home in the evening. As soon as she opened the door, her face changed when she saw the lovely setup and the gifts on the table. She didn't look surprised in a good way. She looked pale, so I thought she was tired and went over with flowers to ask, "What's wrong? Are you feeling okay?" "No." She shook her head, her eyes fixating on the table filled with gifts, including toys and shoes for the baby. "Why did you prepare all this stuff?" Noticing her frown, I sensed something was off but smiled and wrapped my arm around her shoulder. "The gifts are for the baby and for you." Hearing that, her pale lips quivered. "How did you know?" That reaction was strange, and I couldn't help but ask, "Babe, what's going on?" Tina hadn't told me about the pregnancy. I found out accidentally. I saw the used pregnancy test in the bathroom trash. I thought maybe she hadn't figured out how to tell me and wanted to do a surprise, but it wasn't that. Tina was conflicted and said, "Ben, I terminated the pregnancy. I wasn't ready, and it wasn't the right time." "Then when is the right time?" A wave of anger, disappointment, and humiliation washed over me. For the first time, I shouted at Tina, "Why didn't you talk to me first?" She froze, her gaze turning cold. "The decision is mine, Ben. I'm a person, not a baby machine." She gave me a cold look before heading upstairs. Watching her leave, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. Everything I prepared felt like a joke. This wasn't the first time I'd done everything for her only to get nothing back. That's how it's always been with Tina and me. I try so hard to please her, and she remains indifferent. I fell for her at first sight and couldn't help but go all out for her. At a party, I spotted Tina in a corner, wearing a white dress, with her hair cascading over her shoulders, eyes lost in thought. She wasn't breathtakingly beautiful, but her cold, aloof aura drew me in like a moth to a flame. After that, I found out everything about her and started pursuing her. A month later, I was with Tina. From dating to marriage was barely 3 months. After we married, I was always there for Tina. I'd plan surprises and usually get a thank you in return. It was like an invisible wall stood between us. For 3 years, I tried to break that wall, and gradually she'd smile at me and share her thoughts occasionally. Every small change made me hopeful, and when I discovered she was pregnant, I was over the moon. Having a child would strengthen our bond, or so I thought. But Tina's move was a rude awakening, bringing everything back to square one. The wall never left. After cooling down, I started thinking about why Tina did this. I messaged my assistant to shadow Tina and report her daily activities to me. I didn't go home in the following days, and Tina never asked about my whereabouts. She'd still dress up and go out daily. Meanwhile, my assistant sent me some photos. Tina was out with an unfamiliar man and his daughter, shopping and having fun, visiting theme parks. She looked gentle and happy, like a loving wife and doting mom. This version of Tina was something I'd only seen in dreams. The man in the photos was Eric, Tina's first love. They were high school classmates and had an intense romance. A classic tale of a wealthy girl and the poor boy she adored. Her parents broke them up and sent Tina abroad for school. She returned 4 years ago. I knew all this when I pursued Tina, but I didn't think it mattered. It was just a teenage fling. How long could it last? Besides, Eric married before Tina came back. I didn't worry about him, but I underestimated Tina's lingering feelings. Eric lost his wife a year ago and is now raising his 3-year-old daughter alone. Tina somehow found out and reconnected with him a while ago. No wonder she didn't want to keep our baby. She's been planning to be someone else's stepmom. Even Eric's current home is one of my unused properties. Tina uses my place and my money to care for her first love. When I put the photos of Tina with Eric in front of her, she hardened and, in an arrogant tone, said, "Ben, did you have someone follow me?" I have been too submissive, which made her feel untouchable. Even with evidence, she had the gall to question me. I tamped down my anger, pointing at the photos with my finger. "Shouldn't you explain this first?" Tina frowned and said, "Eric and I are just friends. Nothing as sordid as you think." Ha! I was furious but amused. "You gave up our kid to take care of your first love and his daughter?" Tina was silent, and then a disdainful look passed through her eyes. "So what you really want is a kid, right? Ben, your so-called love is just wanting me to have your child. You're so selfish." After being married for 3 years, I always respected Tina and tried to understand her, never flipping out because of her cold attitude. In the end, she cheated on me and had the nerve to call me selfish. At that moment, I was completely clear-headed. I didn't have any love left for Tina. I spoke firmly. "There's nothing left to say, Tina. Let's get a divorce." "Divorce?" Tina narrowed her eyes, clearly irritated. "Even if something happened between Eric and me, that's in the past. Now he's struggling raising his daughter alone, and I'm just helping him out of old friendship. Can't you, as a man, handle that? I'm not petty, but I'm also not going to let my wife use my money to care for her first love. Do I look like a fool to you?" Seeing my cold expression, her attitude softened a bit. She sighed and said, "You want kids. I'll give you that, just not now, Ben. Can you wait a little longer?" She smiled slowly, with a hint of hope in her eyes. I responded with a cold laugh, "I'll get the divorce papers ready soon. Just sign it when it's done." Her smile fell instantly, replaced by a chilling glare. "Ben, you'll regret this. I already regret not waking up to this sooner, wasting years of my life." Tina moved out, arrogantly saying as she left, "Ben, I'll come back when you apologize to me." All she got from me was a cold stare. I stayed put on the sofa, barely looking at her, and said lazily, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out." She slammed the door and left angrily. The next few days, I had my assistant continue keeping tabs on Tina. Sure enough, Tina was visiting Eric's place, accompanying him and his daughter, going shopping every day. My phone kept pinging with credit card charges. I screenshot each one and then called the bank to freeze all of Tina's cards. It wasn't long before she called, furious. "Ben, why'd you freeze my cards? The cards are mine and so is the money." She questions me when she's spending my money on her first love? I never realized she was so shameless. I chuckled lightly, saying coldly, "Because the cards are in my name. We're not divorced, and what you earn is our communal property. You have no right to freeze the cards." A hint of impatience in her voice, but I stayed calm. "Tina, you're not getting a dime from me." "What do you mean by that?" Her voice dropped, and I simply hung up without explaining. If she wants to help people, fine. But everything that's mine, I'm reclaiming. The next day, I went to Eric's place with my assistant and 2 bodyguards. The locks hadn't been changed, so I used my fingerprint to get in. Inside, the 3 of them were eating. Surprised, they gawked at me. Tina reacted first, getting up quickly, displeased, and demanding, "What are you doing here?" "Just clearing out my place." I glanced at her, then gave the bodyguards a nod. With the bodyguards leading, I strolled into the living room and casually sat on the couch. Eric stood up too, glaring at me. "Ben, even if you're Tina's husband, it's not cool to just barge in, right? At least the ex knows who I am. This will be easier. You're the trespassers." I glanced at him, smirking. "The house is mine. Tina brought you here without permission. I'm taking back the house. You have half an hour to pack up or I'll throw you all out." "You!" Eric clenched his fists, looking ready to step forward, but glanced at the strong bodyguards and backed down. Tina, angry, pointed at me. "Why can't they stay here for a bit? You're too much, Ben." Unmoved, I raised an eyebrow at Eric. 2 minutes gone. Moving or not? Before he could reply, Tina blocked him. "Fine, Ben, you win." She gritted her teeth, eyes full of indignation and humiliation. They can stay. I'll go home with you. Stunned, I didn't know what to say. Where did she get the confidence to think I was here to force her home? With kids around, though, I wasn't about to throw anyone out. If they didn't leave, I'd call the cops. Hearing that made Eric relent. No need for that. We'll leave. Tina tried to stop him, but Eric shook his head, smiling faintly. Thanks for your help, but don't make things worse between you two for me. Tina seemed torn between guilt and concern. I'll help you pack. Her gaze at me was full of rage. Ignoring her murderous look, I scanned the place and added, only take your own things. Anything from here or bought with my money stays. Ben, you're so selfish. Tina shot me a glare, then turned to help Eric pack. Eric's daughter, seemingly scared, sat frozen at the table. When our eyes met, she flinched, tears shining in her eyes. For a moment, I felt like the villain. Then I shrugged it off. Not my problem. Parents should care for their child. Eric packed quickly and called to his daughter, Sunny. Come on. Sunny? Nice name. Watching Eric and Tina, I felt even more disgusted. Tina was trailing Eric with her suitcase when I remembered something and called out, Tina, wait. Thinking I wanted her back. Tina's eyes showed a hint of arrogance even as she kept her haughty look. Too late for regrets. Ben. Ignoring her words, I gestured to my assistant, Leo, give her the papers. Leo nodded, pulling a document from his briefcase and handing it to Tina. Divorce papers. Take a look, and if they're good, sign them. No need. I'll sign right now. Tina cut me off, gritting her teeth. The assistant quickly handed over a pen and ink pad. Without even looking, Tina signed and stamped the papers. She tossed the agreement into my lap, her chin lifted defiantly. Ben, you're trying to use divorce to force me to give in, right? Well, I'm not going to do what you want. After her bold speech, she walked out hand in hand with Eric. I looked at the divorce papers in my hands and felt a wave of relief. It was way easier than I thought. With the divorce agreement in hand, I swiftly pulled all investments from Tina's family company and ended all collaborative projects. Her family's business was already a mess, surviving thanks to my family's support. Now it was dangling on the brink of bankruptcy again. Tina's parents nervously came to see me. Tina's dad pushed his glasses nervously, cautiously asking, Ben, did you and Tina have a fight? We got divorced. What? His hand trembled, skewing his glasses. Tina's mom went pale. Ben, don't act on impulse. The divorce papers are signed. If you don't believe me, ask Tina. I couldn't be bothered to explain further, so I showed them the door. After they left, they probably pressured Tina a lot, because she stormed in the next day, still stubborn and refusing to lower her proud head. Ben, you got what you wanted, I came back. Tears started to well up in her eyes, and she wore a look of suppressed pain. I won't see Eric anymore. I'll have your child, just stop hurting the company. This was the first time Tina cried in front of me, but I didn't feel anything. I looked at her calmly and said, you're back just in time. Let's get the divorce certificate together. Her tears froze, replaced by anger. Enough. I've already swallowed my pride. What more do you want? Realizing her outburst, she bit her lip and then said, Ben, nothing happened between Eric and me that shouldn't have. She still thought the divorce was a tactic to bring her back to me. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted this mess cleaned up. So I calmly explained I just want a divorce, that's it. But she kept shaking her head. I don't believe you. Suddenly, talking to her felt exhausting. So, Tina and I ended up in a divorce court battle. Since the divorce agreement was signed and I had photos and screenshots proving her infidelity, the divorce was finalized quickly. Plus, we had a prenuptial agreement. Married or not, Tina wouldn't get a dime from me. My parents never approved of our marriage in the first place. They wanted a daughter-in-law from a family of equal status, and Tina's family was near bankruptcy at the time. Marrying her was likely to drain our resources. They also saw Tina's cold attitude toward me and realized I was the one giving more, which made the relationship unbalanced. But I was determined to marry Tina no matter what. This strained my relationship with my parents, but eventually, They agreed on the condition that we sign a prenup. During the marriage, my family would assist Tina's family business. However, if we divorced and I was not at fault, Tina wouldn't receive any assets from me. When we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the divorce certificate, Tina had lost her previous arrogance. "Ben, how can you be so heartless?" She cried again, not from regret, but from resentment, angry that I left her with nothing. Yet, she didn't think twice when she made her decisions, abandoning me for her first love. She used to take things for granted, never expecting I'd finally stand up for myself. "Tina, take care of yourself." I left without saying more once I had the divorce certificate in hand. Not long after, Tina's family business was sold, and they moved out of the upscale neighborhood. The drop in living standards was significant, but they still managed to live decently. I didn't pay much attention after that. The next time I heard about Tina was 6 months later. Assistant Leo hesitated before asking, "Ben, the front desk received an invite sent by Miss Tina. Should I take care of it for you?" Putting down the document I was reading, I raised an eyebrow with interest. "Let me see it." Leo handed me the invite. Opening it, I found a wedding invitation for Tina and Eric. The wedding was at a small hotel, set for the following weekend. Wow, friendship turned into true love, it seems. "Leo, prep a $200 cash gift. You'll come with me that day." "Sure." He nodded and left my office. On the wedding day, I showed up in a well-tailored suit, arriving during the toasting session. The place was bustling. Dressed in her white wedding gown, Tina trailed behind Eric, greeting guests, moving awkwardly from table to table, her face red after a few drinks. Eric didn't look back at her, just kept chatting with the guests. After a while, Tina scanned the room, seemingly searching for something. Her eyes lit up when she spotted me by the door. She whispered something to Eric, and they walked over together. "Ben, you came," Tina said, smiling with a hint of triumph. I nodded, motioning for Leo to hand Tina the prepared cash gift. Before Tina could take it, Eric snatched it up, squeezing it suspiciously. "Is this a check?" he asked. I immediately corrected him. "Nope, it's $200 cash." Eric's tone turned sarcastic. "Is Mr. Gua always this stingy at weddings? Gifting only $200? Despite the complaint, he still pocketed the cash with eagerness. I quietly took it in without showing much expression and said, "Not everyone ends up like this. This is the first wedding I've been to where people got married out of pure friendship. I've never seen it among my friends." Tina's face fell and she spoke up right away. "Ben, I didn't invite you here to cause trouble. I just wanted to show you that I can live just fine without you. I'm really happy now." Yeah. I nodded and smiled, giving her a once-over. "Tina, I'm gonna remember how happy you look now. It'll make me feel even better when I see you miserable later." I didn't care about the look on her face and turned to leave. Just outside the hotel, a girl stopped me in my tracks. "Are you Tina's ex-husband?" That was her opener. I didn't rush to answer, just looked her over first. She was wearing glasses, dressed simply, no fancy makeup, seemed like she just graduated. I nodded. "Yeah. Do you need something?" She looked serious. "Can we talk?" I had nothing else planned, so after a moment's hesitation, I agreed. We sat down in a coffee shop, and the girl introduced herself. "My name's Lily. My sister was Linda, Eric's ex-wife. Lily's parents passed away when she was young, and her sister Linda dropped out of high school to work and support Lily's education. Linda met Eric at work. They fell in love, got married, and had a kid. Things were okay at first, but after their daughter was born, Eric changed. He started drinking and became abusive, leaving Linda bruised and battered every time. Once he sobered up, he'd beg for forgiveness, and Linda, feeling sorry, held out. But he'd keep doing it. Lily tried to convince Linda to get a divorce, but for her daughter's sake, Linda endured it for 3 years. Finally, after being knocked out one time, Linda came to, seeing her daughter crying beside her, and resolved to end it. She couldn't bear her daughter living in fear anymore, so she decided to divorce. But just as she brought it up, something terrible happened. Eric had secretly racked up huge gambling debts. One day after sending their daughter to school, debt collectors showed up at their door. Knowing she was the debtor's wife, they demanded money, things got heated, and in a scuffle they pushed her down the stairs. Linda hit her head, losing a lot of blood, and it was too late by the time she got to the hospital. Eric hadn't even stepped out of the house during all this. Later, he turned around and demanded compensation from the debt collectors, wiping out the debt entirely, and walked away with $10,000. Ben, my sister, was killed because of Eric. Lily's eyes were wet with tears and full of hatred, locking onto me. He stole your wife. Don't you hate him as much as I do? Hate's a strong word, but yeah, Eric's pretty despicable. So I asked Lily straight up, what do you want me to do? She didn't hold back. I want custody of Sunny. I came today to take her while things were chaotic, but that jerk Eric hid her, and I can't find her. Apparently, Eric had anticipated all this and didn't let his daughter show up at the wedding. Lily struck out, but she bumped into the drama between me, Tina, and Eric. Figuring that the enemy of her enemy might be a friend, she bravely approached me to team up. After thinking it over, I gave Lily my number and told her to wait for news from me. Then I got Leo to dig into all of Lily's and Eric's recent movements. A few days later, he handed me a detailed report. Eric's record was frankly pathetic. A no-good thug in high school, didn't even make it to college, scrambled to get by with odd jobs. None of them lasted long. He got into online gambling, racked up huge debts, lived off what he got from exploiting his late wife, Linda, before blowing through it all and staying jobless. Even going into his marriage with Tina, he was unemployed. Tina probably had that first love syndrome or something. Can't figure out why she was hung up on him. And I bet she didn't know Eric's currently $30 in debt. He never shook the gambling habit. The $10 he scammed out of the debt collectors is long gone, and he opened new loan tabs, digging himself deeper. Lily's file, though, actually stood out in a good way. She was a recent grad from a top school, with stellar performance and several top prizes for her final project. She wasn't tied to any company yet. Someone like her could bring huge value to a business. Looks like helping Lily is going to be worth it. I called her right away. She picked up cautiously. Ben, have you decided? Yeah, I can help you, but there's a catch. Go on. Once this is over, you have to join my company and sign a 3-year contract. All right. She agreed without hesitation. Thank you, Mr. Ben. Dealing with Eric wasn't that tough. He's the kind who wants to get rich quick with no effort. All I needed to do was dangle the opportunity in front of him. I arranged for Eric to get a job. Within the first month, he was bumped up to a team leader for performance, then to department manager in the second month. By the third month, the company got busted for fraud, and Eric got swept up and arrested. Being in charge meant significant responsibility, landing Eric in prison for over 10 years. Before all this, the company wanted to get my company to invest in them. I took one look at their info and passed. They put on a front of overseas trading, but behind the scenes, they were exploiting legal loopholes and making money in gray areas. A company like that was bound to get cleaned up sooner or later. However, after I put Eric in there and casually mentioned him to the CEO, he got promoted out of the blue. Eric really pulled through, especially in charming people. Not only did he surpass his business targets, but he also trained a standout team. He thought he found the perfect job, not knowing it was my doing. What awaited him were years behind bars. Once Eric was in, Lily naturally got custody of her niece, Sunny. As agreed, Lily joined my company. Her team leader told me she was impressively capable, hardworking, and eager to learn. A real talent. I was pleased with the outcome. When Eric went to prison, his wife Tina was oddly relieved. Eric's debt issues surfaced quickly after their wedding. After a big fight, Tina painstakingly emptied her savings to clear his debts. She came to see me at the office, showing bruises and marks, sobbing about her miserable life. She couldn't fork out more cash after clearing his debts, and Eric's attitude towards her changed. He complained she was useless and ordered her to get a job. She refused, and he hit her. Tina begged me for a job, but I didn't oblige. I told her she should call the cops, not come to me, but she shot down my suggestion. No, that'll just make things worse. He'll get angrier. Ben, Can't you help me? She kept shaking her head, insisting I find her a job, then get a divorce. I gave my final advice and had someone escort her out. She looked back as she left, her face a mix of pain and conflict. In her eyes, amidst despair, I saw a hint of regret. Eric, being a gambler, got bolder with a job, continuing his spree. When he won, he'd celebrate with some drinks, and if Tina annoyed him when drunk, he'd beat her. When he lost, he'd drink to numb, and if she seemed idle, he'd hit her again. They showed up at the police station countless times, but Eric always apologized and repeated the cycle. Tina, unable to endure anymore, asked for a divorce and got a beating. Eric wouldn't let go of her that easily. Tina suffered through these days of agony until Eric ended up in prison. With him incarcerated, she filed for divorce. Seeing her first love in such an ugly light, she felt no attachment. My scheming against Eric inadvertently helped her escape her misery. I didn't hear much about her after that. Meanwhile, my parents, hearing of Tina's second failed marriage and me still being single, started urging me to find someone new. They came over and started nagging the moment they sat down. My mom smiled warmly. I found a girl for you from a suitable family, good-looking, sensible, a great catch. You should meet her. I was about to refuse when my dad interrupted. We've listened to you before. Now you need to listen to us. Their back and forth left me with no room to refuse. I thought, fine, I'll just meet her. Consider it buying her dinner and chatting. Then we both leave. On the meeting day, I dressed casually and found she was already waiting. She had obviously put a lot of effort into her appearance. I felt guilty as I sat down, regretting that I hadn't dressed up. Felt a bit rude to not match her effort. After a simple introduction, things got awkwardly quiet. Perhaps noticing my discomfort, she smiled slightly and handed me the menu. Why don't you decide what to eat first? I awkwardly took the menu, flipping through aimlessly. Ben, you're quite well known in the circles, she suddenly said. I paused, looking at her. Wendy had a cryptic smile and I got curious. Known for what? They say you still pine for your ex-wife. Even after the divorce. She teased with a deeper smile. I was mystified. Is that really what's being said about me? Or was Wendy testing me? Realizing this, I seriously told her, if that were true, I wouldn't be here right now. She stopped smiling, scanning me. All right, but you don't seem very invested in this date. Sorry, I was a bit disrespectful. I genuinely admitted my fault, and Wendy seemed satisfied with my honesty, nodding with a smile. So, Ben, how about inviting me to a movie next time? Her smile now was playful rather than mysterious, to which I gladly agreed. Would love to. We had a pleasant dinner, and at the end, exchanged Instagram handles. I drove her home, and she smiled, saying she's looking forward to the next time. Our second date was set for the weekend. This time, I made sure to dress nicely and got movie tickets and a gift in advance. When I picked her up, I immediately presented her with the gift. Wendy seemed a bit surprised, but I explained it was to make up for my past rudeness. She appeared impressed, and when she opened the box, there was a beautiful diamond necklace inside. Seeing her delight, I knew I'd done well choosing the gift. When I helped her put on the bracelet, her eyes sparkled with joy. Thank you. I love it. Though now I'm troubled about what return gift to give you. No need. I instinctively refused, but she got serious. Reciprocity is key. It can't just be one person giving. I was taken aback and suddenly thought of Tina. I had given Tina many gifts, but she never gave any in return. I was foolishly giving it all for her without realizing that this was a big mistake in a relationship. Wendy reminded me of this. So, I didn't refuse anymore, just smiled and said, I'll look forward to it then. We had some time before the movie, so I went shopping with Wendy on the 3rd floor before heading to the cinema on the 6th floor. As we were getting our tickets checked, I heard someone quietly exclaim, "Oh." I looked over and realized the ticket checker was Tina. It was a bit surprising, but not shocking. Normally, after studying abroad, she wouldn't just be a ticket checker. But I knew her degree wasn't worth much. It was bought with her family's money. She hadn't worked since returning home and married me to enjoy a cushy lifestyle as a wealthy wife. Now, life circumstances forced her to work, but with zero experience, her job options were limited. She could handle something as simple as being a ticket checker. I just glanced at her and kept walking with Wendy. I thought Tina would be busy working and not disturb me, but she actually reached out to stop me. She looked at me pitifully and said, "Ben, why did you pretend not to know me?" Honestly, I was speechless. This wasn't the place. "Aren't you working right now?" I reminded her. She saw the line of people waiting for tickets behind her and reluctantly pulled back. I didn't look at her again and walked away with Wendy. Wendy was inquisitive. Who was that just now? My ex-wife. There was no point hiding it. I spoke straightforwardly, and Wendy nodded knowingly. Not wanting her to overthink, I added, "I didn't know she worked here. We won't come to this theater next time. It's okay." Wendy flashed a bright smile and confidently said, "I'm not worried." Her radiant smile erased any doubts I had. After the movie, Wendy and I walked out arm in arm. I wasn't used to such sudden intimacy. My movements were a bit stiff. Just as we stepped out, Tina approached. Seeing Wendy clinging to my arm, Tina looked devastated. "Ben, who is she?" She stared at me, hoping for something, anything, from me. "This is my girlfriend, Wendy." As soon as I said it, Tina shook her head in disbelief. "I don't believe you. You knew I worked here and brought someone to upset me on purpose, right?" "Ben, I give up. Can we not get back together?" Ridiculous. Still fooling herself after all this. "Tina, unlike you, I'm not intimate with just anyone. All my affection is for my partner." I made it clear, and any hope in Tina's eyes slowly faded away. She wiped her tears and walked away. Watching her leave, Wendy whispered, "She seems a bit unstable?" "Maybe," I casually replied. Going from a pampered princess to struggling for a living within a year is a lot to handle. "Anyway, when did I become your girlfriend?" Wendy suddenly challenged me. I chuckled, a bit embarrassed. Just as Tina pestered me, I instinctively used Wendy as a shield. But I've thought seriously about my relationship with Wendy. Moving into a relationship right now might be too quick. If you feel uncomfortable, we can take our time getting to know each other. I want something more with you. I was sincere, but Wendy just laughed softly. "You dummy. Can't you tell I did it on purpose?" Her words clicked with me. She had deliberately helped me out of that situation. I thanked her warmly. "Thank you." "You're welcome, Ben." Looking forward to it, she smirked, like a clever fox. I couldn't help but laugh with her, feeling something subtle yet uplifting. Looking forward to it, Wendy. I still have a lot to learn about relationships, but I have time to figure it out.